Hi, I'm Scott Davis. Welcome to New World Birth. By accessing this presentation, you're inviting me to share this information regarding our passage through this challenging and yet very hopeful time. This is the care and feeding of a New World Age report for the Gregorian date of October 13th, 2013, for One Cib, or Wisdom in the Mayan Tzolkin calendar. Also, we're going to be talking about Mars moving into Virgo, the Aries full moon, which is also a lunar eclipse, Mercury turning retrograde, and the Sun moving into Scorpio. October 13th, 2013 is One Cib, or Wisdom, carries the themes of old ones, ancient memories that wait at sacred sites, protection of universal consciousness, inner strength, shared teachings, the elders, clearing away the past like the vulture, forgiveness, making amends, great sages and keepers of ancient records, represented by the vulture or the owl. This is a time for releasing the past through forgiveness, which then creates a grateful heart space to receive the wisdom of the ancients. The next 13 days is about surrendering something that no longer serves in order to make room for transformation. This is a time to forgive others and to ask for forgiveness, not only from individuals, but also from our Mother Earth. This being One Cib, I'm reminded that New World Birth was actually founded on December 8th, 2010, which was One Wisdom. So in that spirit, I'm wondering what do folks want to see more of? What things are a distraction? I'm aware that, some of the more edgy topics have been popular. I've also added human design over the last few months. People think that's helpful? So basically, I'd love your feedback so that we can increase the value of our collective experience. I'm including the human design transits for the Trickster, along with the astrology and Tzolkin day signs. I'm going to quickly review some points, some information before discussing the neutrino forecast. So for the One Wisdom 13-day period, we start by looking at the Sun and the Earth and all the planets out here. Those are the glyphs in the wheel, as they relate to just like we would with astrology. But the thing that's really different here is astrology, we're looking at them related to zodiacal constellations and to each other through the angles they make. In human design, we're looking at them as they relate to the hexagrams of the I Ching. And then those are mapped into specific locations in the body graph. And this design here is a blown up body graph. For instance, at the beginning of this Trickster, we have the Sun, which is represented here by this black circle with a dot in it. It's in Libra. It's in the 57th hexagram. And all the way out on the outside, we can see the stack of lines that actually is how the 57 is denoted. It goes, we see it count them from bottom to top as yin, yang, yang, yin, yang, yang. So the lower trigram and the upper trigram are exactly the same for the 57. And then they're all mapped into spots inside here. Specifically, the 57 is right here on this upper edge of the splenic center. And, just to kind of give you an idea, we're only looking at the glyphs in black for this one. We have Jupiter here in Cancer. It's in the 53. We can see Mars here at the end of Leo in the 29. We do have the Sun in Libra in the 57. We've got Saturn conjunct the North Node in Scorpio in the 44, and Mercury in Scorpio is in the first hexagram. And then we have Mars in Sag in the 9th hexagram, Pluto in Capricorn is in the 58th hexagram. And we're going to look at how those all connect into locations in the body graph. So the shapes here in the body graph are called centers, and they kind of what they do is they represent the next stage in our evolution as humans. We moved from having 7 chakra beings, and this happened in 1781 with coincidental to Herschel's discovery of the planet Uranus. We morphed You know, and after that, the people who were born had a different design. The 7-center design, they were living a Saturnian life cycle, 28 years, midlife hitting at 14. What we've seen is since that point that we've moved to living a Uranian life cycle, 84 years, midlife hitting at 42 years. So this is very different. And then the pathways between the centers are called channels. Back here in this, it's nadis that were the channels that connect the chakras. We're going to call them just channels here in human design. And they come from the Kabbalistic tree of life. So the sun is here in the 57th hexagram, and it's in the center that's called the splenic center. And it's the gate. It's called the gate. It's the gate of intuitive clarity, or also known as the gentle. Is located on the upper edge of the splenic center. It's in an individual energy channel called the channel of the brainwave when it's connected up to the 20. And that's typically what we would look at, because the 57 to the 20 is part of the knowing circuit, whereas the 34 to the 10 is part of the centering circuit. But all these gates can intermingle, interconnect. So we have two more channels when we're thinking about the 57. We have when it's connected to the 34. We have this is called the channel of power. It's the archetype of being a human, and it was it defined until the day before. The last day of the other Trisena, and it was described really clearly in the One Night report. So if you want to know something more about the archetype, you might look at that. The other connection the 57 makes is to the 10 here in the centering circuit, which that's called the channel of the perfected form. I have found that human design is an amazingly accurate tool. And it's become the primary tool that I use in readings. And basically, I use human design to talk about the person, and then I use the astrology transits to talk about what are the experiences that person's having at this current stage in life, in their evolution. So it's kind of like human design is the character description of the person in the play or movie, and then I use astrology to kind of describe the scene of the movie. So anyway, the black strips of paper on this diagram, they represent the sun, the planets, and the nodes, regardless of whether they form a channel. So we have the following hanging gates or potentials at the beginning of the one wisdom Trisena. Like we said, we've got the sun in the 57. The Earth is over here in the 51. The North Node and Saturn are both here in the 44. The South Node is up here in the 24. We have Mercury in the 1, and Venus is over here in the 9. Mars is in the 29. Jupiter is in the 53. And then we also have Saturn, we already mentioned, in the 44. Uranus in the 21 over here. Neptune in the 55. And Pluto is down here in the 58. Obviously not every gate activation forms a channel, but this information is really helpful if you know your own human design chart, because some of these transits form channels with potentials in your own personal body graph, and you can get your human design chart by entering in your birth information on the jovianarchive.com website. And on there, you're going to see a button that says Get Your Free Rave Chart. Just put your birth information in there, and you'll get your chart, and you can kind of follow along and see how all this energy is actually affecting you personally. Because the moon moves so fast, it activates 3 or 4 gates in a day. I'm not going to be following it in this demonstration. So on the beginning of One Cib, or wisdom, as you can see, there's no defined channels. But later on the 13th, the sun moves out of the 57, and it moves over to the 32, also coming out of the splenic center. And whenever the sun moves, the earth also moves, and it moves out of the 51 and down to the 52, or the 42, I'm sorry, in the down here in the sacral center. And because we have Jupiter in the 53, we get this definition that defines the sacral center here, which is this motor of human reproductive sexual energy, and the pressure coming from the root center being defined through this channel, which is called the channel of maturation. And it's going to be with us until October 19th. This brings energy to really be cautious about starting something new. Although I'm not really sure how this is going to affect folks as a transit. For the people who have this in their birth chart, making any commitment must be followed to its conclusion. So I kind of would be careful about making commitments, because it makes it very difficult to get out of it later. It's an energetic where we experience the same thing over and over and over again if we try to jump out or abort it before it's reached its natural completion. So, which in some cases can be like 7 years. So this may be a time that feels like that movie Groundhog Day, with experiences repeating cycles, just to slowly bring us to a state of maturity and wisdom. And it's the wisdom that all life is a journey that never ends, because this is a channel, it's an abstract collective channel, it's about experience. And so we may all feel more deeply attuned to the cycles of life for a few days, where we're more apt to notice things like planetary cycles or body cycles or historic cycles. This may also affect the non-generator types, projectors, reflectors, and manifestors, in that, you know, we might be feeling more busy or having endurance to work harder. The key thing is just don't get used to it. This is a conditioning force. And the other thing also I want to mention about that is also we've got the sun in the 32. And when the sun's in the 32, it brings a fear of failure. So all this is going to be a part of our experiential field, part of our conditioning force from the 13th to the 19th of October. On the 15th, Mars moves out of the 29th gate, which is the gate of saying yes, and it moves over here into the 59th gate, which is about sexual strategy, and it also out of the sacral center. And then on the 18th, Venus moves out of this 9th gate, coming out of the sacral center, and it's going to move into the 5th gate, which is also in the sacral center, but more upward pointing, trying to connect up to the G center at the 15. Of course, the 15 is not there. And so then on the 19th, this is when the definition goes away, because the sun leaves the 32 and it moves into the 50, which is about commitment, and could even be a fear of making a commitment. This is also about laws and what do we need in order to protect children or people who can't necessarily defend themselves. Could be people with disabilities, could be the elderly as well. And so whenever the sun moves, we also the earth also moves, which means it's no longer in the 42, which means that the definition goes away, and it moves over into the 3rd gate here, coming out of the sacral center, in the channel of mutation. But we don't have time for that one right now. Anyway, on the 23rd, Venus then moves out of the 5th, and it moves over here to the 26th, coming out of the ego center. And this is significant because it is now connecting from the 26th with Saturn and the North Node, which are over here in the 44 in the splenic center. So this brings us another definition. What this is This is basically this is called the channel Surrender. It's going to be with us from October 23rd to October 28th. This is called the design of the transmitter. Okay, and it's interesting because the 44 is about somebody who can really, they know, they almost from their sense of smell, they can smell winners and losers. You know, they know when somebody's not being really clear with them. And then the 26 is somebody who's just really good at bending the truth in order to make a sale, in order to get their idea across. And that's kind of what becomes the theme of having the whole channel defined through the transit. Is this conditions us to believe that we have instinct for knowing how to present anything to anyone and get our message recognized. This channel definition works when it's best when it's invited, when someone somebody asks, and basically when somebody asks you, what they've done is they open their aura to what you wish to share. So if you've got something that you want to get across, if you wait and they ask for it, then when you tell them it, they've opened up and it goes right in. It gets to the core of the person rather than being repelled by not being invited, because this is a projector channel. It has to be invited. This can be manipulative. Folks who have this in their chart, you know, these are the type of people who can sell ice to Eskimos. During this time period, people will be more convinced in more convincing in their presentations, whether it be a message, a product, or a truth, with the aim to get paid more for doing less. And then on the 25th, this is our last movement here. We have Mars moving again. It's leaving the 59. And it moves over here to the 40, coming out of the ego center in the channel of community. But this is the gate of aloneness. So anyway, before we get to the daily energy for the One Cib or Wisdom Tricena, on October 13th, 2013, one of the things is we want to look at is that all the planets appear to be direct in their movement, except for Chiron and Uranus and Neptune, which appear to be moving retrograde. And I've discussed all these in depth. The implication of these planets as being retrograde in past reports. So I'm just going to keynote each one. Basically, retrograde Chiron has us reviewing our wounds so they can be released by having the courage to open our hearts to any fear or pain associated with the past. Retrograde is getting us into the past. Retrograde Uranus in Aries is seeking to shake our very foundation, to shock us to awaken and forces us to embrace a new way of living through reversals and unexpected events. And retrograde Neptune in Pisces is seeking transcendence through spiritual practices to keep us grounded as we expand our intuition and our consciousness. And we're, as we talked about, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more later on, and even more so in the One Offering report, the next report. We're in the middle of 4 years of unexpected rebellion of the individual. That's represented by Uranus in Aries, as it's challenging. It's in a 90-degree square to the decaying power structure, represented by Pluto up here in Capricorn. And hopefully it will stay right there in Capricorn. But really the real big change is for this Mercury retrograde period. I mean, the big change for October for this is Mercury retrograde. It's already kicking in. You can tell by my communications here. But Mercury will be turning retrograde on during this report period, and it will be retrograde until November 10th. So the end of October and the beginning of November are good times to avoid signing contracts or other legal papers, making major purchases, or even taking a new job if you can postpone those activities. But you can't always do that, so be very careful. But if you can, it's going to be much more clearer after Mercury is moving direct. And Mercury retrogrades force us to slow down and pay more attention to our lives by making us focus on the details of our daily experience when looking at a retrograde cycle of any of the personal or inner planets. It provides information about a course correction to our present course. And during this report period, we have Mercury traveling through the first stage of the retrograde process, which actually started on October 1st. And then there are really, when we talk about retrogrades, there are really two important points to be aware of in looking at the cycle. There is the point where the planet appears to be moving backwards, where it turns retrograde, and the point where it appears to move forwards again. The first stage represents a shadow time between Mercury moving past 2 degrees Scorpio, which happened October 1st, to the point where it's eventually going to which is also the point where it will eventually begin moving forward again, and the point where the planet slows, stops, and begins moving reverse, which is 18 degrees Scorpio. This first stage is when we receive new information to adjust our direction. And then the second stage is the retrograde stage, when the planet is actually retrograde. And this is a time to watch for events that occur related to the information that we received in the first stage. And then the third stage is when the planet begins moving forward again until it crosses the line where it originally turned retrograde. So during the third stage, we move forward with the revision to our previous course. We entered the first stage for Mercury on October 1st. So until October 21st, we're receiving information about an adjustment that needs to be made in our lives. Then Mercury goes retrograde October 21st at 18 Scorpio until November 10th, excuse me, at 2 degrees Scorpio, which is a time when we're going to be noticing events that shift our thinking. And then from November 10th to November 27th, we are in the third stage where we implement the change in direction that we've gotten from the awareness gained through the experience of this retrograde process, the 3 stages. And I think it's really interesting in looking at Mercury retrograde, as I've been doing this for a very, very long time, that during its course, this particular Mercury retrograde is very interesting because it connects 3 times each by making a trine to Neptune over here in Pisces. It's going to be conjunct Saturn in Scorpio 3 times, and it's also going to sextile or make a 60-degree angle to Pluto in Capricorn 3 times during this Mercury cycle, to add to the interest to me about this particular Mercury retrograde is on November 1st. That's the day it conjuncts the Sun. So that's the day when Mercury retrograde will be exactly at the same degree as the Sun. And that happens in every Mercury retrograde. It's moving backwards, and from our perspective here on Earth, it's at the same degree as the Sun is at that point, that would be in Scorpio. But that also happens to be the day of the 4th Uranus-Pluto square, which is very, very significant. I'm going to go to this in much more detail, not only in this report, but even in more so in that report, which would the next report, the One Offering report, which will cover November 1st. But this has me recalling the Chinese proverb, which I also believe is a curse, that says, "May you live in interesting time." I've discovered that Mercury retrogrades repeat every 79 years. So what we can do is, I've been looking at the recurrence of the themes from 1934, 1855, 1776, because let's see if those were interesting times. 1934 was the rise of fascism in Germany and Austria. We also had coup attempts in France and Bulgaria. There was a rise and fall of gangsters and bank robbers in the USA. What stuck out for me also was the realization was 1934 was also one of the years of the previous Uranus-Pluto squares, and Uranus was in Aries just like it is now. Pluto was in Cancer, so it was squaring in the opposite direction. But this was a historical time period of global financial decline and increased fascism. Okay, 1855 brought us the Great Gold Robbery of 1855, which occurred in England. We had rising conflicts between pro-slavery and anti-slavery forces that began in Bleeding, Kansas in the USA. And then there was the Taiping Rebellion in China, which was one of the deadliest military conflicts in history, killing about 20 million people, mostly civilians. And interestingly, 1855 was also the time period, the last time that Neptune was in Pisces, as it is currently. So this is also a time of more compassion for the suffering of slaves in the United States, which would be a theme of Neptune in Pisces. But it should also be a theme now that we're developing more compassion for the suffering of people who are being oppressed in any shape or form. 1776. That was the time of the American Revolution, the Declaration of Independence, and it's interesting to me that the tactics that were carried out by the patriots in history would be considered acts of terrorism by our modern viewpoints, such as attaching a time bomb to the hull of the HMS Eagle, or placing cannons on Dorchester Heights overlooking the Boston Harbor. And these are all themes of the trickster archetype, to use cleverness and covert actions rather than attempt to battle a powerful adversary on its own terms, which I'm going to talk about. That Mercury retrograde, I've talked about it before, but it really has this quality of being the trickster. 1776 was also a year when Pluto was in Capricorn, just like it is now. And Pluto in Capricorn was dismantling power structures that have outgrown their usefulness, which was the last period of Pluto in Capricorn, until it got to Pluto went into Capricorn in 2008, where it remains now. And clearly we're looking at cycles within cycles. The players have all changed roles, but the themes of decaying empires collapsing under their own weight, with individuals employing tactics of cleverness over direct confrontation, with oppressive power of fascist governments, economic decline, increasing the chasm between the elite and the struggling throngs, and the growing compassion for those left without a voice, are the fabrics of their time, as well as being the fabric of our history. In the sign of Scorpio, this is the themes of powerful feelings, emotional awareness, and intuition are guiding our transformation through experiences of death and rebirth. Will be particularly apparent as they have a profound effect on our lives. And if you look at the astrological house of your chart, If you look in your astrology chart, your natal astrology chart, and look where does 2 degrees to 18 degrees of Scorpio fall, you can find the theme where you're going to experience your revisions, and to review and rethink the characteristics that are represented by that house. For me, this is the 5th house. It's the 5th house of children and creativity. So I'd expect this cycle to provide me with new information about my creative process and perhaps about my relationships with children. But no matter where the Mercury retrograde occurs in your chart, it often leads to changing choices, goals, and directions in the world. Look for themes of transparency and bringing information to the surface, the exposure of motives and ethics, which are all in line with the 7th month, which we talked about as in the metaphysics of October in the last report. But the ethics and motives are 7th month characteristic that are in October. The 10, we go 1, 0, 2, 1, 3. You add up all those numbers. 1 and 2 is 3, and 1 is 4, and 3 gets us 7. We're in a 7 month, which is really focused on motives and ethics, which is also what is coming up for us with all this scorpionic energy. So by the middle of October, Mercury is moving slowly. It stops to turn retrograde, 18 degrees Scorpio on the 21st. When a planet slows down to a stop, from our perspective here on Earth, the planet is considered to be at the peak of its power. Mercury, at the peak of his power, reminds me that the Greek god Hermes, who the Romans renamed to Mercury, was the trickster god. He was the messenger of gods. You know, he was very powerful. He was the only god that could go down to Hades and have safe passage back out. But if you weren't on his good side, you might not get the message, or it might be altered to mean something different than the way it was intended. And in mythology, the trickster is a god, goddess, man, woman, animal, or spirit that creates mischief by playing tricks or acting outside of the accepted rules of the community. And I've covered the trickster archetype in great detail in the past. So you might look back on other videos where the trickster is being referenced. But I do want to share this quote from Joseph Campbell, because I love this quote. I think it's a wonderful quote about the trickster, but I think it's also a wonderful quote about Mercury retrograde. And what Campbell said is, almost all non-literate mythology has a trickster hero of some kind. And there's a very special property in the trickster. He always breaks in, just as the unconscious does, to trip up the rational situation. He's both the fool and someone who's beyond the system. And the trickster represents all those possibilities in life that your mind hasn't decided it wants to deal with. The mind structures a lifestyle, and the fool, a trickster, represents a whole nother range of possibilities. It doesn't respect the values that we've set up for ourselves. It smashes them. The fool breaks through. The fool is the breakthrough in the absolute into the field of controlled social orders. Love that quote. And it's really a great description of Mercury retrograde. And it also contains a formula for confronting a much more powerful foe, because it's about using cunning over fighting a powerful adversary on its own terms. You know, Mercury retrograde is also intertwined, like I said, with this Uranus-Pluto square. You know, and we're going to talk about this in great detail. I mean, I know in the past I've talked about astrological charts that that got a lot of press, that went viral, and they looked really pretty. But if you want to look at a powerful astrological chart, that's what it looks like. We're going to talk about this quite a bit. Like I said, Mercury retrograde is intertwined with the Uranus-Pluto square because the day Mercury conjuncts with the Sun is November 1st, the day of the 4th Uranus-Pluto square. And this, Uranus-Pluto square is the downtrodden, authentic individual rebel squaring off against the decaying power structure. The material world continues to destabilize. So this is very important to, one, support your local providers, of whatever service. Get it local. Find out who those people are. Also have a strong, it's also about having a strong spiritual foundation. It's a time when it feels like our backs are up against the wall, where we have no choice but to change or endure something that we once thought was unthinkable. And this, this Uranus gives us something that's totally unexpected. So this goes beyond just dealing with the consequences of bad choices or poor planning, but it can go as far as random events where people are just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I'll be covering this in more depth in the next New World Birth report. But just to get you started on this significant shift, we talked about Uranus and Pluto having 7 squares that occur between 2012 and 2015, whose themes are the individual, which is Aries, revolutionary, upsetting, which is Uranus, the decaying power structures represented by Pluto, the decaying and dying is Pluto, and the power structure being Capricorn. So as we approach the midpoint, this is the critical point where where there's a shift, from the old paradigm to the new. And you know what? My favorite example of the shift taking hold is when that reporter asked the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry if there was any way Syria could avoid military intervention, and Kerry responded, and this is a quote, he could turn over every single bit of his chemical weapons to the international communities in the next week, turn it over, all of it, without delay and with a full and total accounting for that. But he isn't about to do it. It can't be done, obviously. That's his quote. And that question changed the course of a history. That question from an individual, unknown reporter, or at least not known to me. And that's the power of it. That's the power of Uranus and Aries, that the individual can upset the power structure from just following the status quo. And here in the U.S., the old boy network is spouting that the United States has been seen as being weak because we didn't attack Syria. To me, finding a peaceful solution always requires much more strength than the aggressive solution. So just a real quick rundown. I'll be talking about this in much more depth. The Uranus-Pluto square on November 1st, it's very, very powerful, with at least 10 planetary alignments happening at the time of the square. Because we have so many planets that are 9 degrees and change. It's like a shooting gallery. When I first saw this chart, it looked like a lightsaber battle. We've got, just to give you an idea, what we've got in this chart, we've got Mars trine Pluto, opposing Chiron, and in conjunct with Uranus. And the moon is squaring Pluto and opposing Uranus, leading up to the exact Uranus-Pluto square, which then is followed by Mercury and the Sun merging together as they sextile Mars in conjunct Uranus. So what we've got here, you can see it by these 2 green lines pointing over here at Uranus. These lines are called in conjunct. They represent a 150-degree angle from Mercury conjunct Saturn to Uranus, and also from Mars down to Uranus is 150 degrees. This is called a finger of fate. And this finger of fate is pointing right at Uranus. And then we've got Mercury and the Sun, sextile Pluto, as is Chiron. This all tells a story. And the story is that we're looking at a war between titans. That's the story of the Uranus-Pluto square. Pluto is direct and being well supported, because here we have Pluto down here, and it's being supported by Chiron. It's being supported by Saturn and more of the Sun and Mercury. And Mars up here is trine, so that's a very supportive angle. There's a lot of good energy for Pluto in this chart. But then Uranus is retrograde, and it's got nothing but detrimental connections to the other planets. It's got, well, you know, to Pluto it's got the square, and then it's got these inconjunct going on from the Sun and Mercury and from Mars. So what is the story? You know, I see it like we got a scrappy Uranus. It's been backed into the corner by Pluto and his entourage, because you got to remember, he's got all these other planets that got its back. But you know, Uranus is completely unpredictable. It's like an injured, cornered, wild animal, and the results will be unexpected and most likely violent, because we've got Mars part of this alignment to so, and Neptune in this chart. Okay, we look at Neptune over here. Neptune really isn't connected into all the major energetics of that chart. So what that tells me is that Neptune's not a player in this chart. I don't believe that there's going to be deception involved. I suspect that this is a chart where there's going to be an overt incident or incidences that present us with an experience, like a chemical reaction where something changes forever. There's no way you can put it back into its original material. You know, it's like, you know, you can't make a pickle back into a cucumber. You know, once it's pickled, it's a pickle. You know, whatever it is, you know, there's no going back. The world this is a shift point. You know, it may take us a while to recognize what the shift was, but we're going to kind of look at this as a time period where, you know, there was pre this time period and post this time period, and this was the portal, this was the doorway. And when I think we're going to find that November 1st will be a time that we're going to look back as when a quantum shift occurred, when we experienced something that just cannot be undone, like a ship sailing over the edge of the world, the point of no return. Okay, but we're going to talk about that a whole lot more in the next report. So anyway, let me get to the daily energy here. So the daily vibrational energy for the Wisdom Trisena, October 13th, again, is One Cib, wisdom, unity experience through introspection, meditation, forgiveness. We got the Aquarius moon is in harmony with Venus and Uranus and challenged by Saturn and Mercury. The day moves from wanting to be with friends and the people we love, and then kind of having pleasant yet restless feelings, craving emotional excitement to do something that's outside of the daily routine. And then later, some folks are feeling lonely and isolated. And then finally, our moods are influencing our ability to really think rationally. And then on the 14th, we've got two Kaban, or Earth, in the Mayan Tzolkin calendar. This is about duality experience through the gratitude for Mother Earth. While the moon is being supported by the sun and opposed by Mars and merges with Neptune, the day moves from having a sense of inner harmony, which is mirrored in our outside world, to then opposing Mars, which influences people to be kind of more excitable and irritable, which can really cause problems in our personal lives. And then finally, we have feelings of empathy for those around us, including the possibility of clairvoyance or telepathic experiences for those of us who are sensitive by nature. And then October 15th is 3 Etsnob, or Flint. This is about taking action through being introspective, as Mars excuse me, moves into Virgo. So here we go, Mars moves into Virgo out of Leo. And it's going to be there to stay until December 7th, when it then will move into Libra, which is a planet of it's being its detriment. Mars in Virgo brings organization and systemization to our drive at work and in service. This can bring kind of a coolness to the expression of our sexual energy. Excuse me. But under the surface, there's also this idealization of both rapturous physical connections and an exchange of mental energy. Overall, Mars's desire and passion is kind of reined in while it's in Virgo. While we may see people aggressively driving their cars while talking on their cell phones in some attempt to multitask to be more efficient with mixed results. Also, we have on that day, the Pisces moon is challenged by Venus in harmony with Pluto and finding support from Saturn and Mercury, which moves from having pleasant energy for being with others that we want to know better, with experiencing deep emotions on a profound level, to later having more sober, realistic view of life. And then finally, being more in touch with our feelings and able to share them with others. And then the 16th is for Kawak in the Mayan Tzolkin. This is called also Storm. It's about stability through recognizing the gifts and adversity. And this is the day when Venus, here in Sagittarius, forms a trine to Uranus in Aries. So from our perspective here on the Earth, we're looking at a 120-degree angle, which wants social experiences and romantic encounters to be outside of the norm, unusual, surprising. This is a great day for trying something out of the ordinary. The daily routine just won't cut it under this kind of influence. Folks are looking to do something that is stimulated outside in their social lives and in their relationships. It's a day when there may be more unique encounters and love relationships that begin under this influence tend to be exciting, electric, unstable, and short. But they have a strong potential for changing our lives. This could also bring, unconventional agreements in relationships, such as agreeing to change from having an exclusive coupling to experimenting with having other lovers. Like experiencing different types of entertainment are also favored under this transit by enjoying music or art or theater that's outside of what your normal choices would be for those type of things. Also on that day, Venus also is in a square to Chiron on the 16th, which is a time when we can be wounded by our relationships. But also given that Chiron's in retrograde motion, it might be a time where a wound from our past comes back into our awareness to be healed. 16th is also the moon in Pisces finds support from Jupiter, which brings a pleasant sense of well-being. All right. The 17th is 5 Ahau, or Sun, in the Mayan Tzolkin calendar. This is about empowerment through honoring the wisdom and memory of our ancestors. The Aries moon is being challenged by Pluto as it merges with Uranus, finds support from Venus, which brings a day with people having the compulsion to act in ways that are not good for us in the long run. And then feeling impulsive and acting rashly, with moods changing quickly and unexpectedly. And then later, enjoying pleasant feelings and social interactions. Then we have on the 18th is 6 Imish, or crocodile. which is about being in the flow through nurturing new beginnings as we experience the Aries full moon and lunar eclipse, which is being squared by Pluto. Full moons are a time of tension as the sun is in Libra. It's about balancing the needs of those we have relationships with, and with the moon in Aries, what we're trying to balance it with is our own personal emotional needs as individuals. Eclipses really kind of intensify the experience, especially in the part of the globe where they can be observed. Now, the square to Jupiter brings a benevolent quality to the lunation and brings a kind of a contemplation of loftier aspects of life. So it seems like whatever rough edge we're experiencing from the eclipse, Jupiter might soften it a little bit, or at least find a positive way of implementing any intensity in striking a harmony between our commitment to others and our commitment to ourselves. But then again, we are talking about Jupiter, so it could also go overboard into one of the extremes or the others. You know, it is a square, so it's kind of challenging the whole axis here, particularly squaring the moon. Then the next day, October 19th, we got 7 Eek or wind reflection through communication. At this point, Mars is in opposition to Neptune. So we've got Neptune here in Pisces, and we have Mars here in Virgo. From our perspective here on Earth, this is 180 degrees, between the position of those two planets. This can really be discouraging as people feel inadequate in just trying to fulfill their daily responsibilities. This can also be a time of low energy for a day or two before and after the exact opposition. This is best handled by avoiding stressful situations, particularly physically demanding activities, as the immune system is compromised and sickness is more possible if you are getting run down. This could also be a time to be careful of deception. So if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. Expect more misunderstanding, anger, mistrust during this time period. This can also indicate increased substance abuse, as folks will want to really disengage, as many will have to face consequences from the past that they'd rather just avoid. This transit also favors working alone on a creative project. It favors service activities that are in the interest of other people. Also on the 19th, we have the Taurus moon finding support from Mars and Pluto, harmonizing with Neptune, bringing the energy for asserting ourselves in a positive manner and standing our ground if necessary, while also being sensitive to the moods of others. And then later, we have more intense emotions and stimulates sensitivity, which also favors sexual experiences. The 20th, we have 8 Akbal, or night. This is a balance through contemplating the stars. While the moon in Taurus is opposed by Saturn and Mercury and harmonizes with Jupiter, the day begins with people feeling lonely and isolated, and then later feeling a real conflict between feelings and reason, and others having fruitful expressions of their deeper awareness, either internally or with another. Excuse me. And then it finally really shifts to feeling in the flow and having a sense of wholeness when Jupiter is involved. October 21st is 9 Con, or seed, or lizard. This is about patience, experience through planting seeds and making new connections. And this is when the date when Mercury turns retrograde. So it's now moved along in this path. So it's on the inner track. It's now appearing to move clockwise. from our perspective here on Earth, it's moving clockwise. It will be looking like it's moving this way, which would be retrograde and on the 21st. This is at 18 degrees of Scorpio. Even folks who aren't really aware of, don't follow astrology, are aware. You say, oh, Mercury's retrograde, and they understand that's why they're having an effect on communication, technology, travel. This brings a time period that really shifts to review the information that's below the surface. There's a focus on transparency. Again, we're exposing the scorpionic themes of ethics, motives, values. And then we also have the Gemini moon, which is ruled by Mercury. And the Gemini moon is being challenged by Neptune and Mars, which brings energy where daydreams and fantasies feel more important than reality, with people feeling irritable, which then can also lead to needless disputes. The 22nd is 10 Shishan, or serpent. This is about manifestation through being flexible, with the moon in Gemini being stimulated by Uranus, opposed by Venus. It shifts from pleasant yet restless energies and the desire for emotional excitement to later pleasant feelings for enjoying sensual experiences and rich food, with a caution against overindulgence. Excuse me. October 23rd is 11 Keeb, or transformation, which is about resolution from releasing what no longer serves us. And this is the day the sun moves into Scorpio. Scorpio and Keeb have very similar energies. So in this chart, you've got the imagination here is that the Earth is moving in this orbit here. So basically, the Earth has moved beyond the point it is on the chart and is now here. So you can see that from our perspective, consider this to be the position of the Earth, that the sun would now look like it's in Scorpio at this point. And this is this brings us to the peak of the fall season in the north, the spring season in the south, which it's Scorpio's keynoted as intensity and passion in a fixed water sign. The Scorpion is also known for endurance and drive. It's also about seeking to find a deeper purpose in life. And of course, Halloween, with its origin in the pagan holiday of Samhain, is about seeing through the veil into the other world. Those occur, the Samhain occurs at the midpoint of Scorpio. So for the next month, the sun, kind of casts more light on subjects as death and rebirth, transformation, sex, regeneration, psychic experiences, anything that really delves below the surface to explore the depths and the mysteries when transiting Scorpio. And then on that day, we've got the moon. It's making no angles all day, so it's void of course. So it doesn't favor major decisions and purchases, but again, moons, when they're void of course, it's really good energy for resting, to assimilate all this different energy that we're getting during this time period. And then the 24th, we have 12 Manik, or deer. This is an understanding through being of service to others. This is also the Cancer moon, which is finding support from the sun and Neptune, and is stimulated by Mars and opposed by Pluto, and challenged by Uranus. It's a very emotionally active day, beginning with a sense of harmony within ourselves, and then our innermost subconscious fantasies and daydreams really are confusing our reality, to later bringing the desire to work independently from others. And finally, it brings deep emotions rising to the surface, while people are likely to act hastily and jump to conclusions. Okay, October 25th, 13 Lamach, or star, which is about movement to the next stage through being grateful for abundant relationships And this is the point where the sun, like I said, we're looking at the sun in Scorpio at this point, forms a trine to Neptune down here in Pisces. So from our perspective here on the Earth, this would be a 120-degree angle. It's more idealistic and understanding, a more spiritual level of reality. This increases our sensitivity to more of the subtle aspects of the world around us. This alignment faces infusing romance, creativity, and spirituality. So you might engage in activities like improv, full contact dance, yoga, vinyasa, like sun salutations, tai chi, working on art, music, or any creative process. And on the end of the Trisena here, we've got the moon is in Cancer. It's finding support from Saturn and Mercury, and it's merging with Jupiter. And this is the last day of the Trisena's emotional wave, moves from having a more sober and realistic view of life to feeling in touch with our emotions and expressing them to others, and to finally experiencing good feelings and generosity towards others. So no matter what the energies that are affecting you during this one Wisdom Trisena, take some time out to be in the flow of the planet by being in nature, or watching a sunrise or a sunset, or communing with the stars, being conscious of the moment through introspection, meditation, or just really being conscious when you're with somebody you love. Every day we have is a blessing. No matter what dramas beckon to distract us, we're all here to give the performance of our lifetime on the world stage. Just take some time out to observe the play as well as act your part by remembering you're a spiritual being who just happens to be having a human experience. So play your part on the stage, but also be the person in the audience watching the whole experience. Anyway, thank you, as always, for checking out New World Birth. The next segment, A Care and Feeding of a New World Age, will be on October 26th for one Maluk, or offering. And also, we'll be talking about the Scorpio new moon and solar eclipse, Venus moving into Capricorn, Jupiter turning retrograde, and the 4th, Uranus-Pluto square. So you're not going to want to miss that report. You can check us out on Facebook or YouTube or the Mayan Magics website. And as always, I encourage you to share this information as videos or text as widely as you choose. I will be discussing the astrology of November 2013 and providing short 10 to 15 minute human design readings to the participants of the Earth Needs Rebel show on Orion Talk Radio on Friday, November 1st. It's at 1 o'clock at Eastern time. I'm not sure if by then it might be, no, actually daylight time changes a couple days after that. Daylight time. Actually, I get on about 1:30 on the show. They do the news. And it's a 2-hour show. But anyway, so come check out the show. Do it live, and that way you can get a real short reading that is recorded, because the shows are recorded. That will be helpful. As always, I invite you to contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com if you have any questions or wish to schedule a reading. And my readings, if you get a reading, a paid reading, they're about 2 hours long. They're very, very dense. As you've seen what my videos are, think about that, and it's all about you. Anyway, so this is the address in order to contact me if you want to get a reading. I am providing readings. I want to make this service available to the greatest amount of folks. So I've created 3 options with 3 levels of compensation. These readings are really designed to provide you information to help you navigate these challenging times. So at the basic level, we look at your human design chart, which will help you understand how to use your individual strategy and authority in making decisions based on your unique design. I then provide 3 months of astrological transits as they relate to your natal and progressed astrology astrology charts, along with your human design reading at the middle level. And then at the top level, the human design and astrology transit reading is recorded and sent to you as an MP3 file to be downloaded onto your computer. So if you've been thinking about getting a reading, I would love to provide you a reading. Especially, you know, like I said, we're living in uncertain times. You know, these readings are there to give you a sense of certainty. You know, if you know the patterns, then you don't have to get beaten up by them as much. You can just sort of go, oh yeah, I knew this was coming up. Or I know how to navigate this stuff because I know my strategy and authority from the human design reading. So anyway, to get the reading, you need to either be able to call me in Maine in the USA, or we can connect on Skype to receive your reading. I am also accepting donations. I'm trying to keep these reports freely available. We certainly, there is some question about how long we're going to be able to keep going here at New World Birth. I'm certainly hoping to finish out this round, and which gets into December. But basically, I need your help. We need your help in order to keep this going. Donations are accepted. And if you get a reading, you know, you're helping us and you're helping yourself, because the reading will really help you understand something about your life. As always, I am deeply, deeply blessed that you've taken the time out to connect with my passion for all these ancient mysteries and their application to our journey during this incarnation. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste and Lakesh, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you for one offering, and just many blessings, and I hope you're finding peace.